Tatsumi is a broke village bum who dreams of making it big in the capital and becoming an imperial soldier. But everything changes when he discovers that the corrupt empire tortured and butchered his closest friends. So, to get revenge, he joins a band of psycho assassins stacked with lethal baddies who promise to help him in exchange for his milky sausage. It all starts on the way to the city, where Tatsumi helps rescue some weak travelers from getting eaten by a monster. He slices the beast apart like it's nothing and completely annihilates it. With the monster eliminated, the rescued travelers thank Tatsumi for saving them, but he brushes it off, bragging that taking down monsters is nothing more than a walk in the park for him. He even boasts that one day he'll travel to the capital and become a famous celebrity adventurer admired by everyone. Even though the travelers try to warn him about how dangerous the capital is, Tatsumi is more stubborn than a goat.
Come on, man.
And his mind is already made up. So, a few weeks later, Tatsumi finally arrives at the imperial capital and is beyond excited. He decides the first thing he needs to do is make some cool cash immediately. So he rushes to the Adventurers Guild to get registered. However, when he gets there, he learns he has to start at the lowest level, which is something his massive ego simply cannot accept. He starts yelling and even goes as far as drawing his blade against the guildmaster. So because of his useless attitude, he gets tossed out of the guild like a bag of garbage.
Get out of here.
Just as frustration starts to set in, a beautiful blonde mummy milker approaches him, offers to help. Tatsumi notices the two massive reasons on her chest and immediately starts simping for her like a complete fool. The girl says that just by looking at him, she can tell he's a village bum with dreams of making it big in the city. So she knows a quick way he can land a government job and start balling. But first, she asks him to treat her to lunch. Tatsumi immediately agrees to buy her lunch. But when the girl starts eating like a glutton, he grows suspicious and demands she tell him how he can get hired by the government. The girl explains that he needs two things to secure a government job. First, money. Second, connections. She says she can help him, but only if he's willing to drop some cash. Without thinking twice, Tatsumi agrees and hands over his entire life savings. The girl gets excited and leaves the tavern, promising to come back with good news. Hours pass, and eventually the bartender tells Tatsumi the place is about to close, so he needs to bounce. Tatsumi insists he's waiting for someone, but that's when the bartender breaks it to him. He's been scammed like a moron, and the girl is never coming back.
What?
Hearing this, Tatsumi freaks out. So now broken, with nowhere to stay, he decides to sleep on the street. That's when he meets another pretty blonde girl who introduces herself as Aria and offers him a place to stay. Tatsumi immediately grows suspicious, assuming she's another scammer. But Aria's bodyguard reassures him that he's safe and explains that Aria is simply a kind philanthropist. Tatsumi then decides to follow Aria home, and when he arrives at her mansion, he meets her father, who also seems like a genuinely kind man. Tatsumi thanks him for his hospitality and feels relieved that he's finally met some kind-hearted people in the capital. After sharing his dream of building a successful military career so he can protect his village, Aria's father explains that joining the military could send him to fight on the borders, but Tatsumi insists that he's fully prepared for whatever comes. When Aria asks if he traveled from his village alone, Tatsumi says no, revealing that he actually left with two friends, Ieyasu and Sayo. However, before leaving his village, the village chief had given Tatsumi a small totem to keep as a good luck charm. Tatsumi then explains that after he and his friends left the village, they were attacked by bandits and forced to split up and go their separate ways. He admits he's worried about his friends' safety, but since they're strong fighters just like him, he is convinced that they're probably fine. Aria's father then assures Tatsumi that he'll put in a good word with his military contacts so he can get enrolled in the army, which excites Tatsumi to the moon. The next day, Tatsumi helps Aria with her shopping, but as she continues buying even more things on top of the trailer load she's already picked up, Tatsumi starts gisting with one of her guards about life in the imperial capital. The guard, whispering, tells Tatsumi that the emperor is just a child, and the real power behind the throne is the wicked prime minister. It is revealed that because of the wickedness of the prime minister, the country is rotting from the inside. But then the guard shows Tatsumi a wanted poster of a group of assassins known as Night Raid, a deadly crew that targets corrupt, high-ranking officials and members of the capital's upper class. Later that night, Aria's mansion comes under attack. Her mother is sliced clean in, too, by a blue-haired assassin like bread straight out of a bakery.
Hacker. Hacker.
While trying to get some sleep, Tatsumi senses a murderous intent within the residence and immediately rushes out of his room to see what's happening. On the way, he stops dead in his tracks when he looks up at the sky and, to his shock, spots a band of deadly assassins. He instantly recognizes them as Night Raid, the infamous group known for targeting the wealthy. Outside, the guards try to defend the mansion, but they get clapped one after another by the Night Raid assassins. Watching the guards get wiped out in seconds, Tatsumi panics and bolts off to find and protect Arya. Meanwhile, Arya's father is strangled to death in his study by one of the assassins. One guard manages to grab Arya and attempts to escape with her. But as they run toward the storage house, they bump into Tatsumi, who's exhausted after searching everywhere for her. But suddenly, one of the night raid assassins drops from the sky like an action figure, ready to assassinate Arya. Tatsumi quickly unsheathes his sword to defend Arya, but the assassin girl tells him he isn't her target and then uses his stupid head as a trampoline to launch herself toward Arya even faster. Arya's guard starts firing sporadically at the assassin, but she effortlessly closes the distance and separates his limbs like it's nothing. Arya panics, realizing she's about to die, but just as the assassin is about to send her straight to Nirvana, Tatsumi jumps in to defend her again. The assassin keeps telling him that Arya isn't his concern, but Tatsumi is way too much of a simp to listen. Fed up, she declares that she'll just eliminate him instead. Right as they're about to clash, the same blonde girl with the massive juggernauts who scammed Tatsumi back at the tavern suddenly shows up. Tatsumi freezes in shock, and the assassin immediately takes advantage of the distraction to finish him off. As she's about to slice his neck open, Tatsumi desperately begs her to wait and demands to know why she's so determined to assassinate an innocent girl. That question makes her pause, so together with the blonde scammer, now revealed to be Leone, they break open the warehouse and show Tatsumi the truth. Inside are innocent people, Arya and her family, lured in with sweet promises, only to be imprisoned and tortured to death. Tatsumi can't believe his eyes, but what truly sends him into a nightmare is seeing his best friend, Ieyasu and Sayo, among the prisoners, barely clinging to life. Arya desperately tries to deny her involvement, but Ieyasu, struggling to stay alive, confirms that she was the one who personally tortured Sayo to death. At that point, Arya finally snaps and admits everything. She confesses that she enjoyed torturing her victims, proudly admits she unalived Sayo out of jealousy, because Sayo had smoother, prettier hair than hers. Enraged, Tatsumi wastes no time and slices Arya down, ending her life instantly. With revenge now finally carried out, Ieyasu passes away peacefully, and Tatsumi couldn't hold back his tears. With the mission accomplished, the assassin girl prepares to leave, but Leone insists that they take Tatsumi with them and make him a full-fledged member of Night Raid. Tatsumi tries to protest joining their bloodthirsty band of misfits, but Leone ignores him. She drags him along to join the rest of the group, and they forcibly carry Tatsumi to their hideout. The next day, Tatsumi buries his friends Lasayu and Sayo. As he sits by their graves, reminiscing about the good times they shared, Leone suddenly pops out of nowhere and straddles him. She asks if he's finally decided to join them, but Tatsumi still refuses, saying he's worried about all the lives they send to the Shadow Realm. But Leone refuses to let him go. Instead, she drags him back inside the house, insisting on introducing him to all the members of Night Raid. The first person Tatsumi meets is a purple-haired girl named Sheele. After hearing from Leone that Tatsumi is still refusing to join, casually threatens to cut off his magnum from its dangling region since he now knows the location of their hideout. Tatsumi completely freaks out at the threat, but just then, another purple-haired Barbie named Mine barges in, demanding to know why Leone had brought the fool to their hideout. Leone explains that Tatsumi is basically one of them now, but Mine shuts that down immediately, saying there's no way a bum like Tatsumi could ever work with professionals like them. She mocks him further, adding that with such a disgusting, laughable face, no one would ever take him seriously as an assassin. Afterward, Leone takes Tatsumi outside the training grounds to meet Bulat, the only male member of the team, sporting a stupid hairstyle and the physique of prime John Cena. Tatsumi is shocked and impressed just watching Bulat train like a maniac, and at first, he doesn't even recognize him. Bulat then approaches and tells Tatsumi that he was the guy wearing the LG body armor the night before. As they shake hands, Leone casually informs Tatsumi that Bulat is a Diddy fan.
Why are you gay?
Who says I'm gay?
You are gay.
Which shocks Tatsumi to his core since his chastity is far too precious to lose. Shortly afterwards, Leone then leads Tatsumi to a stream where they run into the fourth member of the team, idiot named Lubbock, who was apparently waiting to spy on Leone while she bathed. Not long after, Leone brings Tatsumi to meet the black-haired assassin girl named Akame, who is busy roasting and eating monster meat. Akame tosses a piece to Leone, but refuses to share any with Tatsumi since he still hasn't joined the group. She then informs Leone that Night Raid's boss has returned from her mission, When Leone turns around, she finds the boss, Najenda, sitting calmly in a chair. When Najenda asks who Tatsumi is, Leone introduces him as a promising new talent she's considering recruiting. Najenda then nods and instructs Leone to bring Tatsumi inside for a brief meeting. Inside the house, Najenda formally invites Tatsumi to join Night Raid, but Tatsumi still refuses. He says his goal is to make enough money in the capital to save his village from poverty, not to join some band of freaks. To convince him otherwise, Bulat explains that the team exists to fight the corruption responsible for all the hardship and poverty in the country. Najenda also reveals that Bulat was once an imperial soldier, but after uncovering how rotten the capital truly was, he abandoned the army and joined Night Raid. Even then, Tatsumi argues that they can't change the world just by knocking off a few bad guys. Najenda counters by revealing that Night Raid is only a small part of a much larger revolutionary force, one dedicated to crushing the source of evil poisoning the country and giving birth to a new one. Hearing this finally pushes Tatsumi over the edge and he agrees to join Night Raid. He calls them seekers of justice, but the team laughs at him, calling him a big fool for thinking they're heroes when they're really just murderers eliminating evil in the city. With that settled, Najenda officially welcomes Tatsumi into Night Raid and assigns Akame to train him. However, over the next few weeks, Akame only teaches Tatsumi how to cook and catch fish while the others head out on missions. Weeks later, during breakfast, Leone brings in a new case for the team. She shows them a picture of an extremely corrupt ogre and an imperial officer, explaining that according to her client, the wife of one of their victims, the two officials commit crimes and then pin the blame on innocent people. The devastated woman also reveals that her husband, one of the men they framed, was executed for a crime he didn't commit. After hearing the details, Najenda agrees that Night Raid should take the case and deliver punishment to the corrupt officials. Leone warns that the ogre should be easy to deal with, but the real challenge is the imperial officer, a highly skilled swordsman who's always surrounded by soldiers. She explains that the only chance to catch him alone is when he's off duty and drinking on the main street. The real problem, however, is deciding who will take the mission. Bulat and the others are already away on another job, and Akame's face is well known as that of a wanted criminal. Leone volunteers since her face isn't on any wanted posters, but Tatsumi insists on taking the mission himself as his first official job. The team is skeptical that Tatsumi can defeat the brutal imperial officer, but Tatsumi is confident in his sword skill. Akame, on the other hand, worries that he won't be able to take a life, but Tatsumi assures her that he won't hesitate when it comes to corrupt officials who cause suffering and pain to innocent victims. Convinced, Najenda agrees to let Tatsumi take the mission, but decides that Akame and Leone will handle the ogre while Tatsumi faces the imperial officer. However, before they leave, Akame tells Tatsumi that he isn't a real assassin until he completes his first mission and warns him not to get cocky. On the day of the mission, Leone takes Tatsumi to the main street, where the imperial officer is busy drinking. When Leone notices that Tatsumi is lost in thought, she realizes he's probably thinking about what Akame said, so she tells him about Akame's past. Years ago, Akame and her sister were brought to the Empire along with other brats and trained as assassins. During one of her missions, Akame encountered Najenda, who was her target at the time. Najenda opened her eyes to the Empire's corruption and eventually convinced her to join the Revolutionary Army. Later that night, while Akame and Leone take care of the ogre, Tatsumi meets the Imperial officer at the pub where he usually drinks and manages to lure him outside, claiming he has something important to say. Once outside, Tatsumi charges at the big guy with incredible speed and slashes his gut, knocking him to the ground. Just when he thinks the officer is finished, the brute reveals his strength by swinging his massive sword and sending Tatsumi flying. When the officer attacks again, Tatsumi manages to parry the fatal blows, but the soldier quickly overpowers him and slams him into a wall. Refusing to give up, Tatsumi charges once more, leaps into the air, and delivers a powerful strike that slices clean through the officer's body, killing him instantly. With the mission accomplished, Najenda congratulates Tatsumi on completing his first job. But just as Tatsumi starts bragging about how impressive he was, Akame suddenly strips him naked to check for hidden injuries, completely shocking him.
You're teasing me! Naughty, naughty!
Finding none, she smiles in relief and shakes his hand, congratulating him properly. Before long, the team is informed that intruders have managed to sniff out Night Raid's hideout and are attempting to report the location to the Emperor. Najenda immediately orders the team to hunt down the intruders and make sure none of them leave the island alive. As the chase begins, Tatsumi, who's paired with Bulat, gets to witness Bulat transforming into his iconic armor. which instantly gets him hyped since it's the coolest thing he's ever seen. Meanwhile, Akame faces 3 intruders who are loudly bragging about how they're gonna chop her into pieces. But she shuts them up instantly, slicing their necks in a single clean move. Elsewhere, Sheele takes down an intruder who tries to sneak attack her, while Mine aims her massive gun and completely erases another intruder who was just about to escape the island. At the same time, inside a cave, Lubbock traps the female intruder with his magical wire. But just when she thinks things are about to turn into 50 Shades of Grey,
What do you mean by that?
the wire tightens and pierces straight through her body, leaving her dead cold. Meanwhile, in the woods, Tatsumi slices the throat of one intruder, while Bulat is attacked by 6 intruders at once. But he cuts them down at insane speed, bathing himself in their blood. Later that night, Tatsumi tries to get some sleep, but it's difficult. His mind keeps drifting back to his fallen friends, Lisayu and Sayo, and the weight of missing them refuses to let him rest. The following morning, Tatsumi is supposed to be trained by Mine, but when he goes to her room to remind her of the day's training, he sees her complete OnlyFans assets in 4K display. Mine gets embarrassed by the awkward goonery and immediately tries to blast Tatsumi's head off with her bazooka for barging into her room like a complete moron. Later that day, Mine takes Tatsumi into town to show him how impressive the capital really is. But while walking through the streets, they run into 2 degenerates harassing a girl. Mine immediately approaches them and angrily tells them to have fun with their own hands instead.
Gay!
But when they refuse and start talking trash, Tatsumi flicks his blade in a few quick movements, slicing off their shorts and exposing their tiny wieners. They freak out and immediately scramble away like their backsides are on fire. The girl, who was nearly assaulted, thanks them, but Mine bluntly tells her to learn self-defense so she won't be treated like a toy again. Shortly after, while still enjoying the city's scenery, Tatsumi and Mine hear a commotion and move toward the crowd. Pushing through, they're met with a horrifying sight: innocent citizens being publicly executed. Mine then explains that these people were crucified simply for opposing the Prime Minister's wicked deeds. She adds that the young dumb emperor is completely under the control of his uncle, the Prime Minister, who pulls all the strings in the country. Meanwhile, in the throne room, the young emperor sentences another official to death by being quartered by bulls for daring to speak against the kingdom's policies. The emperor acts entirely on the advice of the fat, ugly Prime Minister, Honest, who also happens to be his wicked uncle. Later that night, the team receives their next assignment. Their target this time is a man named Lokai, a relative of the wicked Prime Minister who uses his connections to kidnap women and beat them to death. The team immediately mobilizes and heads straight for Iokai's mansion, and upon arrival, Tatsumi is paired with Mine, who wastes no time aiming her massive gun at Iokai. Despite Lokai being heavily guarded, Mine expertly takes him out by blasting straight through the middle of his head. With their boss dead, Lokai's guards immediately attacks the night raids, only to be intercepted by Leone and the rest of the squad. Leone immediately puts every single one of Lokai's men to sleep, but Tatsumi and Mine, while trying to regroup with the rest of the team, get ambushed by one of Lokai's top martial artists. Mine desperately tries to blast the dude with her gun, but he evades her bullets effortlessly and is about to end her. But just then, Tatsumi defends Mine and then grabs the martial artist around the waist, holding him in place for Mine to get an accurate shot. Seeing Tatsumi risk his life for her, Mine freezes up and starts tearing up instead of pulling the trigger, but Tatsumi snaps at her to focus, and that finally breaks her out of it. So Mine fires, blasting a hole straight at the dude's chest, obliterating him instantly. Meanwhile, as all of this chaos unfolds, a new freaky monster arrives in the capital, ready to cause mayhem like ever before. So in the dead of night, the sadistic freak murders a man and then beheads his wife right in the middle of the street. The next day, Tatsumi continues training hard, this time sparring with Bulat, who hands him a massive sword to work with. When Tatsumi complains about how heavy it is, Bulat assures him that training like this will only make him stronger. After training, Tatsumi shares breakfast with Leone and Akame, who devour the food like a starving hyena, leaving everyone surprised. Meanwhile, deep in the forest, Najenda receives the next mission for the night raid from an injured soldier. As the soldier takes his last breath, he begs Najenda to ensure that the revolution must not fail. When Najenda returns to the base later that day, she informs the team that their next target is the butcher terrorizing the city, an infamous killer who beheads victims at random. Lubbock immediately guesses that the butcher must be Zank the Executioner, and Mine agrees. Since the rest of the team has no idea who Zank is, Mine explains that he was once the headsman of the largest prison in the capital, executing prisoners for years on end. After gaining influence, the Prime Minister continued sending more and more prisoners for Zank to execute, until the constant killing drove him completely insane. Zank eventually fell in love with beheading people for fun, Now executions are no longer enough, and he has begun hunting civilians instead. Realizing just how dangerous this monster is, Tatsumi gets fired up and eager to take him down, but Bulat immediately tells him to chill his itchy palms, warning him that Zank isn't just any ordinary villain, but a monster who stole and now wields an imperial relic. When Tatsumi asks what an imperial relic is, Akame lifts her blade and tells him he's already looking at one. Najenda then explains that long ago, a king sought to protect the empire beyond his lifetime. So to do that, he summoned craftsmen from across the world to forge weapons from legendary beasts and rare orichalcum steel. In the end, 48 weapons were created. They became known as imperial arms, relics of unimaginable power. Some can rival the strength of 1,000 soldiers, and each one is unique, impossible to replicate. During a civil war 500 years ago, many were lost and scattered, but now Night Raid itself wields several of them. Akame, for example, carries Murasame, the cursed blade. A single cut pierces the skin and injects a deadly poison. Leone wields Lionel, an imperial belt known as the Beast King Shifter, which grants feral strength and heightened senses. Mine, on the other hand, uses Pumpkin, a gun-shaped relic whose destructive power increases as the danger grows. Bulat wields Incursio, the demon armor, an imperial arm so powerful that most users die simply trying to control it. Lubbock uses Cross Tail, versatile threads perfect for traps, detection, and slicing enemies. Finally, Sheele carries Extase, giant scissors capable of cutting through anything. But then Najenda warns that all imperial arms share one rule: they always bring death, and when two wielders clash, one of them must die. Knowing that Zank carries an imperial arm only makes him even more dangerous. When Tatsumi asks if he'll ever receive an imperial arm of his own as a member of Night Raid, Najenda replies that only dire circumstances will decide that. The meeting ends, and later that night, the team splits up to patrol the area in search of Zank. Tatsumi pairs up with Akame, and while patrolling, he asks her about her sword, the same blade that nearly sent him to his maker. Akame admits that caring for Murasame is delicate, explaining that even a scratch on her own finger could be fatal. Worse still, against heavy armor, the curse is useless, since the blade must cut flesh. Meanwhile, high above the city, Zank is already watching and is aware of the Night Raid's presence. But his deadly eyes are locked onto Tatsumi in particular as his next game, because of how juicy and round Tatsumi's head is.
Nice.
So later that night, during a meal break, Tatsumi excuses himself to answer nature's call. That's when he suddenly sees his dead friend, Sayo, alive. Shocked, Tatsumi calls out to her, but she immediately takes off running. Tatsumi chases after her, and when she finally stops in an open field, he rushes forward in relief to hug her, only for Sayo to transform into Zank. Tatsumi panics and immediately draws his blade, but that's when he notices the imperial arm Zank wield, the spectator's eye, embedded directly into his head. It allows Zank to read minds and predict movements. As Zank continues taunting him, Tatsumi lunges forward, but every slash and strike is effortlessly dodged by Zank, who predicts his every move with terrifying accuracy. Zank then counters with a brutal slash that drops Tatsumi to his knees, with blood pouring from his guts. For Zank, the true joy lies in watching the expressions on his victims' faces before killing them. But Tatsumi refuses to give him that sadistic pleasure, as he forces himself back up and attacks again. But as he desperately tries to slash Zank in the face, the ugly creep just keeps evading his strikes like taxes until he retaliates with a powerful strike of his own that leaves Tatsumi shaking like a spineless wimp. Zank demands that he beg for his life, but Tatsumi refuses. And in one final move, Tatsumi shocks Zank by finally slashing his cheek. This only enrages Zank further, who immediately starts charging towards Tatsumi to end him once and for all. But at that moment, Akame arrives to defend Tatsumi. Zank instantly recognizes her as the famous assassin with the enchanted sword, so he laughs, thrilled to finally face a worthy opponent. While badly injured on the ground, Tatsumi warns Akame about Zankai's power that can read mind, but Akame remains unfazed. She attacks with overwhelming speed, and the two begin trading blows faster than the eye can follow. Tatsumi watches in disbelief, never realizing Akame is faster than Flash and Sonic combined. Then Akame does something unexpected. She clears her mind entirely, denying Zank the ability to predict her next move. But as Akame attacks, Zank still manages to read her strikes perfectly, and even counters with a slash that grazes her thigh. He then tries to rattle her, asking if she hears the screams of everyone she has slain, just as he does every night. But Akame's response is cold and flat. As she tells him, she hears nothing. Her answer infuriates Zank, so he changes tactics. This time, Zank transforms into Akame's dead younger sister, Kurome. as he believes Akame will never be able to strike her own flesh and blood and will hesitate, giving him the perfect opening to finish her. But to his complete shock, when he attacks as Kurome, Akame does not falter. As she coldly slashes through him, Zank recoils, stunned by how heartless she appears. But Akame admits she loves Kurome, and that is precisely why she intends to end her. As those words leave her mouth, Zank's blade shatters, and Akame doesn't hesitate for a second. She strikes, slicing clean across his throat, ending the monster instantly. But even while lying in his own pool of blood, Zank smiles because for the first time, he is finally freed from the voices of his countless victims. And in his death, he finds peace. The following morning, Tatsumi dreams of Ieyasu and Sayo in the afterlife, saying their final goodbyes. He wakes up feeling miserable, only to find Sheele fast asleep on his bed. While still half asleep, she informs Tatsumi that she will be in charge of training him for the day. But when she finally wakes up fully, she accidentally drops her glasses and starts acting like a goofball, surprising Tatsumi since he's never really seen this side of her before. Later that morning, while having breakfast, Lubbock worries about Sheele training Tatsumi that day. However, Najenda assures him that everything will be fine, since Tatsumi somehow always has a way of getting along with girl. Not long after, the training begins, and Sheele makes Tatsumi wear heavy body armor while swimming as part of their assassin training regimen. Sheele then lets Tatsumi know how dedicated she is to training him, explaining that she is the only member of the team who does absolutely nothing around the hideout. When Tatsumi asks why she does nothing, Sheele opens up and reveals that when she first joined the assassin, she was a complete disaster. She couldn't cook, clean, or even do laundry without messing something up, which led to the others constantly mocking her. While talking, her glasses fall to the ground again, highlighting just how clumsy she is as she desperately tries to find it. Seeing how much of a mess she can be, Tatsumi asks why she chose to become an assassin in the first place. That's when Sheele shares her life story, explaining that from the very start, she had always been clumsy and prone to accidents. People used to call her the crazy girl with screws loose in her head, and because of that, no one wanted to be her friend, except for one girl who gave her a chance and never made fun of her. Unfortunately, one rainy night, Sheele ended up eliminating the girl's aggressive boyfriend, thinking she was protecting her friend, completely unaware that the nutcase actually liked guys like that. Even after taking the guy's life, Sheele felt a sudden calm wash over her. But that night also became the last time she ever saw her friend. A few days later, the boyfriend's friends came looking for revenge, only to join him in the afterlife as Sheele effortlessly cut them down as well. That day, she realized that even though she was a mess at most things, when it came to ending the lives of bad people, she was the final boss. That was the exact reason she chose to become an assassin, to do the one thing she was genuinely good at. After hearing her deranged backstory, Tatsumi realizes that behind Sheele's innocent, pretty face lies a dangerous and deadly side. After training that day, Najenda decides to offer Tatsumi a relic, the eye relic that could predict the future, which Zank had previously wielded. When Tatsumi places it on his forehead and activates its power, he ends up seeing all the girls' floodgate, leaving the cultured creep completely overjoyed.
Oh my.
However, the relic quickly rejects him due to his excessive gooner behavior, forcing Akame to immediately remove it before it causes any permanent damage. Since Tatsumi isn't compatible with the relic, Najenda decides to send it to the Revolutionary Army's headquarters for analysis. As for Tatsumi, she gives him a book containing information about all the relics, so he can go through it and learn as much as possible. While flipping through the book, Tatsumi is surprised to see just how many relics exist, so he asks Najenda which one is considered the strongest ever known to man. Najenda replies that it all depends on compatibility and how the relic is used, but if she had to choose one, she would pick the relic that controls ice. She explains that unfortunately, the ice relic is currently in the possession of an insanely powerful and unhinged chick known as Esdeath, who is busy conquering the northern region. Tatsumi laughs after hearing this, because to him, it only means there are still countless unknown relics out there waiting to be discovered. With that thought in mind, he says he would like a relic that can resurrect the dead so he can bring his fallen friends back to life. However, he's deeply disappointed when Bulat coldly informs him that no such relic exists. Heartbroken, Tatsumi sits alone that night, gazing up at the stars and grieving the permanent loss of his friends, finally realizing that he will never be able to bring them back. Just then, Sheele approaches him, gently resting his head against her chesticles as she comforts him. Tatsumi thanks her sincerely, but Sheele simply smiles, happy that she has found yet another way to be useful. Meanwhile, in the frozen northern region, the entire northern army has been annihilated, and the weak prince is reduced to a dog, forced to lick the feet of his conqueror. Esdeath. Unsatisfied, she killed him anyway, furious that she still hasn't found an opponent strong enough to truly satisfy her. The next morning, Leone decides to take Tatsumi to the slums to show him around, but they are quickly chased by a group of goons whose money Leone had scammed. Meanwhile, back at the castle, a general reports the sudden defection of most of the Empire's generals to the Revolutionary Army. It becomes clear that the Empire is steadily losing its allies, while the Revolutionary Army is gaining power at an alarming rate. Despite this, the brainwashed Gen Z Emperor still believes they stand a chance and that there's nothing to fear. To put an end to Night Raid once and for all, the manipulative, fat-headed Prime Minister advises that all efforts be focused on eliminating them, since they have already wiped out many of the Empire's key allies. The clapped-faced Prime Minister then suggests that, since the Imperial Army has failed to capture a member of the Night Raid, it is time to bring in General Esdeath, the wicked girl in possession of the Ice Relic, to exterminate the Night Raid members once and for all. Back in the slums, after running from the goons, Tatsumi realizes he has gotten separated from Leone and is completely lost, leaving him terrified. Luckily, he bumps into a girl named Seiryu, an Imperial officer and the wielder of a relic that resembles a stuffed animal called Coco. Seiryu then offers to help Tatsumi and guides him back to the spot where he lost track of Leone. After her kind gesture, Seiryu runs off to continue her so-called good deeds. However, unbeknownst to Tatsumi, she is a disciple of the corrupt Imperial officer he once assassinated and was personally trained by him to bring down Night Raid. Fueled by anger and vengeance over her master's death, Seiryu swears that she will never forgive the Night Raid and vows to destroy them, even if it is the last thing she ever does.
I don't like where this is going.
A few days later, Leone and Tatsumi are sent on a mission to take down a criminal enterprise that drugs girls and uses them as playthings. When they arrive at the location, they peek through the rooftop and see girls sprawled out below, completely wasted from heavy drug use. Without hesitation, they crash through the roof like Batman, raining hell on the men responsible. Tatsumi slices one man clean in half, while Leone one-punch man a hole straight through the leader's gut and ending the vile operation in brutal fashion. On their way back to the hideout, Tatsumi worriedly asks what will happen to the drug girl, and Leone explains that even though it isn't up to them, she plans to ask an old retired doctor she knows from the slums to help treat them. Touched by her concern, Tatsumi compliments her for being so kind, but the Beast Girl assumes it must be some kind of pickup line. So she responds by licking his ear, completely freaking Tatsumi out before explaining that what she just did was marking him for future bed hopping.
How? Hold on, bro. How?
Meanwhile, Sheele and Mine are on a mission of their own to take down a corrupt official when they unexpectedly encounter Seiryu and her teddy bear relic, perched on a tree branch and waiting for them like a deranged predators. Seiryu, still seething with rage over the death of her mentor, attacks without warning, but Mine and Sheele immediately evades her attack. Seiryu then looks at Sheele's wanted poster, and once she's convinced that Sheele and Mine are both members of Night Raid, she smiles like a sadistic villain. She then properly introduces herself before declaring that since Night Raid members are wanted dead or alive, she will be their executioner. Mine quickly gets tired of the cheap talk and fires at Seiryu, but Seiryu's relic, the once innocent stuffed bear, suddenly transforms into a monstrous form and swallows all the bullets like they're nothing. The girls, on realizing the little creature is a powerful relic, understands this won't be an easy fight, so she'll unsheathes her giant scissors, while Mine readies herself for battle. When Seiryu's relic, Coco, attacks again with its mouth wide open, displaying rows of sharp dagger-like teeth, Sheele manages to slice clean through its beastly body. But just as Sheele feels confident that Coco is dead, she realizes in horror that the creature has regenerative powers, making it nearly impossible to put down. Sheele is shocked to her core, but Mine reminds her that living relics can't truly die unless their core, usually buried deep inside their bodies, is destroyed. At Seiryu's command, Coco grows massive, muscular arms and rushes at Sheele, launching a brutal flurry of Mike Tyson-level punches. However, Sheele deflects them with her scissors, but the relentless beast keeps swinging until she starts to get overwhelmed. Sensing an opening, Mine immediately leaps into the air and fires a direct missile at the creature, but it only enrages Coco further as it rapidly regenerates once again. Realizing the fight was going nowhere, Sheele decides to take Seiryu one-on-one and lure her deeper into the forest, while Mine focuses on destroying Coco. After an intense back-and-forth exchange, Sheele manages to slice off one of Seiryu's arms. But instead of slowing her down, the severed arm suddenly sprouts guns, and Seiryu fires a shot straight at Sheele. But to Seiryu's utter disbelief, Sheele blocks the bullet with her scissors. Pressing the advantage, Sheele slices even deeper into Seiryu's remaining arm, further disabling her. Realizing she's about to lose the battle, Seiryu resorts to her final trump card, And even though she knows this move could cause Coco to overheat and shut down, she orders her relic to enter berserk mode. With a thunderous, deafening roar, Coco transforms into a gigantic, nightmarish monster. In the blink of an eye, it grabs Mine in its massive hands and starts squeezing her like a melon. Mine screams in agony, and just as she's about to be crushed into mincemeat, Sheele arrives in time, slashing off Coco's monstrous hands and saving Mine from certain death. However, the victory is short-lived, because out of nowhere, Sheele is shot in the back. It turns out Seiryu has a hidden gun implanted inside her mouth. As Sheele collapses to the ground, Coco viciously tears her upper body apart with its teeth, completely obliterating her. Mine, lying on the ground, can't believe what she's seeing as she screams in pain and frustration. Even though her body is barely holding together, she still forces herself to move towards Seiryu and her beast, determined to avenge Sheele. But before she can act, multiple Imperial soldiers appear and begin closing in on her. However, before they can arrest Mine, Sheele, even with her limbs torn apart, emits a bright light that blinds everyone and urgently tells Mine to get the heck out of there. Mine hesitates, but when she sees the sadness in Sheele's face, she can't bring herself to stay, so she turns and escapes. In her final moments, Sheele thinks back on the good times she shared with Night Raid, especially the brief time she managed to bond with Tatsumi. She finally accepts death, happy that she was able to make those memories. Meanwhile, Seiryu is beyond thrilled to have finally taken down a member of Night Raid and starts laughing like a full-blown horror villain. Later that night, Mine returns to the hideout and delivers the devastating news of Sheele's death to the team. Everyone is stunned and overwhelmed with grief. Tatsumi, however, is completely shattered and immediately wants to hunt Seiryu down for revenge. But Najinda urges him not to act rashly and to plan carefully before making any moves. Still, Tatsumi loses control and starts yelling that they need to take revenge, until Bulat resets his brain with a knockout punch that sends him crashing to the ground. Despite everything, Mine swears to avenge Sheele. Even if it's the last thing she ever does, she promises to hunt down Seiryu and her monstrous relic. That night, Tatsumi gazes up at the stars, thinking about Sheele and remembering her kindness and the moments they shared. Losing a friend he had only just begun to bond with deepens his sorrow, and for a brief moment, it feels like her spirit is still watching over him. But while the team grieves the loss of one of their own, General Esdaith arrives at the Imperial capital atop her dragon, with only one goal in mind: the complete extermination of the Night Raid. When General Esdaith arrives at the castle, Prime Minister Honest praises her conquest of the Northern Kingdom. Esdaith then promises that she and her 3 loyal subordinates will locate Night Raid and eliminate every single one of them without delay. Hearing this, the baby Emperor is relieved and, in return, promises to reward her with mountains of gold if she succeeds. However, Esdaith declines, saying gold isn't what she's after. She then bluntly reveals that all she wants is a man capable of oiling her rusty engine, which she claims has been neglected for years. The baby Emperor, Kote, is stunned by her demand. When he awkwardly asked if his fat prime minister would be sufficient to satisfy her freaky urges, Esdaith flatly refuses, explaining that Prime Minister Honest has high blood pressure and would probably die midway through the oiling process. When pressed about her preferences, General Esdaith simply replies that she has very specific standards and will make them known in due course. Back at Night Raid's base, Akame mouth feeds Mine, while Tatsumi continues to struggle with the fact that Sheele's murderer is none other than Seiryu. At the same time, back in the capital, Esdaith assembles her 3 loyal beast servants: Lever, the silver-haired warrior, Niao, the small blonde, and Daidara, the masked brute, and then briefs them on their next course of action. Later that night at Night Raid's base, Tatsumi bumps into Akame, who is holding a plate of snacks. She tells him she plans to take them to Sheele's grave, since snacks were her favorite thing in the world. Tatsumi is surprised by how calm Akame seems after Sheele's death, especially when everyone else has been on the verge of falling apart. But when he casually mentions this like an inconsiderate jerk, Akame snaps. She drops the plate to the floor, grabs Tatsumi by the cloak, and yells at him for saying something so thoughtless, revealing that all she's been doing these past few days is forcing herself to hold together while suffering deeply inside. Tatsumi immediately realizes how stupid his comment was, so he punches himself in the face, shocking Akame, and sincerely apologizes. He then promises her, right then and there, that he will not die until he has avenged Sheele's death. Early the next morning, Tatsumi spars with Akame, desperate to grow stronger. When Akame grows tired of sparring, Bulat steps in to help sharpen Tatsumi's skills and warn him to always stay aware of his surroundings, even while focused on an opponent. However, while they train, Esdeath's beast servants assassinate a political leader who opposes Honest, then scatter night raid flyers all over the crime scene to frame them for the murder. Hours later, back at the night raid's base, Najenda informs the team that the dreaded General Esdeath has returned to the capital. She then instructs Leone to travel there and observe Esdeath's actions for a while. Najenda also reveals that ever since Esdeath's arrival, several political officials have turned up dead. She shows the team the night raid flyers that were deliberately left at each crime scene to frame them for the murders. Najenda believes Esdeath has agents on the ground eliminating political officials who oppose the Prime Minister's corruption. Since these officials are innocent and vital to building a new corruption-free nation, Najenda makes it clear that they cannot afford to keep losing them. As a result, Night Raid will begin protecting political figures who resist Honest, as they are clearly the next target. Tatsumi and Bulat are then assigned to guard one politician aboard a massive border ship, while Akame and Labuk are tasked with protecting another. Aboard the ship, Tatsumi disguises himself as a guest, while Bulat uses his armor's invisibility to remain hidden. To pass the time, Bulat then decides to reveal his tragic past to Tatsumi. Years back, Bulat once served under an honorable general who refused bribes from the corrupt prime minister. That general was eventually imprisoned on false charges, and Bulat himself was branded a criminal. Forced to flee the empire, Bulat never saw his mentor again. Shortly afterward, Tatsumi goes inside the ship for a meal when Niao's flute suddenly begins to play. The sound starts sapping the strength of everyone who hears it, including Tatsumi. Fighting through it, Tatsumi covers his ears and manages to make his way outside onto the ship's deck. There, he immediately runs into Daidara, who attacks without hesitation, wielding his boomerang-like sword. Tatsumi tries to fight back, but it quickly becomes clear he's no match for Daidara. That's when Bulat steps in, determined to show him what it truly means to fight like a professional. Summoning his deadly armor, Incursio, Bulat charges into battle. But just as he's about to clash blades with Daidara, Liver and Niao attack from behind. It doesn't matter as Bulat's speed completely overwhelms them. He dodges effortlessly, counters with a crushing kick, and slices Daidara down in a single strike. Tatsumi is left stunned, unable to believe the sheer strength Bulat possesses. But the fight is far from over, as this time, Lever steps forward to challenge Bulat next. However, the moment Lever speaks, Bulat freezes in shock as he immediately recognizes Liver as the very general from his past.
What the fuck?
The man who once saved his life. General Liver recognizes Bulat instantly, and the feeling is mutual. Liver explains that he long ago abandoned his title as a general after Esdeath saved his life, and now that both of them have chosen their paths, there is no need for formalities. So Bulat steels himself to face the general he once admired. But knowing Bulat will not stop until the mission is complete, Liver removes his gloves and reveals his imperial relic, Black Marlin. This powerful relic grants Aquaman-like abilities, allowing Liver to control any liquid within sight. The relic was created from the organ of an aquatic danger beast that manipulated water itself. So, with the battle taking place at sea, the advantage clearly lies with Liver. Confident in his environment, Liver strikes first, unleashing a crushing water wave cannon aimed directly at Bulat. However, Bulat demonstrates his overwhelming strength by blocking the attack head-on with his spear. Meanwhile, Niao regains consciousness after taking the hit and decides to weaken Bulat while he's busy facing Liver. But before Niao can interfere with his flute, Tatsumi leaps in midair to stop him. Niao's speed is overwhelming, but Tatsumi has sparred with Akame, who's faster than anyone else, so he manages to push back and match Niao's agility. At the same time, Lever summons a massive water serpent and launches it at Bulat. But Bulat charges straight into the sky with his spear and cleaves the water monster clean in two. However, Bulat being airborne is exactly what Liver was waiting for. So he summons multiple dark dragon spears and blasts Bulat out of the air. This powerful attack cracks Bulat's helmet and weakens Incursio's power. Still, Liver knows Bulat well. Having fought alongside him in countless battles, he understands that this won't be enough to put the big man down. So he unleashes his strongest technique yet, Water Dragon Divine Conquest. In an instant, Bulat is overwhelmed by multiple water dragons, leaving him screaming in agony as they crush him from all sides. Even then, it still isn't enough. And just when Liver believes the fight is over, Bulat comes crashing down from the sky and nearly ends the battle in a single strike. But Niao throws himself in the way, defending Liver by taking Bulat's devastating kick head-on. Bulat's Incursio armor eventually deactivates after taking severe damage, while Liver bleeds from his ears after overusing his magic power. Now unable to wield his abilities effectively, Liver attempts to recruit Bulat into Esdeath's army. He promises Bulat a position second only to Esdeath herself, unlimited power, and anything he desires at his beck and call. But Bulat flatly refuses, saying he prefers his current role, protecting innocent civilians. Frustrated by the rejection, Lever injects himself with a green fluid that boosts his physical strength and charges at Bulat with the intent to finish him off. The two clash weapons fiercely, but Bulat's powerful Incursio blade shatters Liver's Timu's blade, leaving him wide open for Bulat to slice him down. However, even while falling, Liver activates another technique. Using his fluid-controlling abilities, he weaponizes his own blood, forming sharp spears that launch toward Bulat. Bulat deflects as many as he can, but several pierce through, gravely injuring him. Tatsumi, seeing this, immediately rushes to help Bulat. But that's when Lever reveals that the enhancement fluid he injected into himself was also highly poisonous, meaning Bulat has been infected as well. With no known cure, Lever declares that Bulat is doomed. After saying this, Lever dies, but Niao steps forward to avenge her fallen comrades. As Niao begins playing his deadly flute, his body transforms into a massive, hulking monster. Tatsumi realizes he has no chance of defeating Niao in this form, not without a relic of his own. Seeing this, Bulat entrusts Incursio to Tatsumi, believing that his spirit and resolve make him worthy and compatible. Niao tries to discourage Tatsumi from using the Incursio relic, warning him that it's impossible for an ordinary human to wield such a powerful artifact. He reminds them that Incursio brings instant death anyone incompatible with it. For a moment, Tatsumi actually starts to believe her, but Bulat, being Bulat, smacks some sense into him and warns him never to listen to a single word from his enemy on the battlefield. Bulat assures Tatsumi that after all the training they've done over the past month, he is the only one truly worthy and capable of wielding Incursio. Encouraged, Tatsumi grips the Incursio blade, and as he yells in rage and determination, armor activate. Everyone is left in shock when the armor doesn't just form around him, but instead evolves into a legendary dragon beast, perfectly suited to Tatsumi's body. Since Incursio was created by purifying materials taken from a dragon-type danger beast with life force stronger than any other, even Bulat is stunned to realize that the dragon's will is still alive within the armor. Despite witnessing all this, Niao charges forward anyway, convinced she still stands a chance against Tatsumi. In response, Tatsumi smashes her into the wall like a stubborn, useless fly, ending her instantly. As the dust settles, Bulat smiles and tells Tatsumi that his future will surpass his own, and then dies with that same smile on his face. While grieving the loss of yet another comrade, Tatsumi vows to wield Incursio wisely and with honor. Elsewhere, in a small town, a pile of corpses burn, and sitting atop them is Kurome, Akame's supposedly dead and crazy younger sister. She is informed by a subordinate that they have been summoned to the capital, and that she, along with 6 others, has been assigned to head there immediately. Hearing this, Kurome smiles with excitement, thrilled at the thought that she will finally get to see Akame again. Days after Bulat's death, Mine, while bathing in a nearby stream, realizes she can finally move her arm freely again, meaning she's fully healed. Without wasting a second, she rushes to the training grounds, eager to get stronger and help avenge both Bulat and Sheele. But when she arrives, she's greeted by a ridiculous sight. Tatsumi and Lubbock, now the only 2 men left on the team, are doing intense push-ups while carrying Akame and Leone on their backs. The team is relieved to see that Mine has recovered, but Mine herself is completely confused by what she's witnessing and demands to know what the heck they're doing. Tatsumi explains that every time he wears the Incursio armor, it puts immense strain on his body, so he has to train relentlessly if he wants to wear it for extended periods, just like Bulat did. Lubbock adds that since there are only 2 guys left in the group, he can't afford to be a sissy anymore and needs to start building some real muscle. While the team chats casually, Najenda arrives and is pleased to see everyone training so seriously. However, she knows there's a more pressing issue. With the heavy losses they've suffered and the enemy's overwhelming strength, Night Raid can't afford to stay understaffed. She decides that she will personally travel to the Revolutionary Army's base camp to recruit new members. Meanwhile, Esdeath mourns the loss of her 3 subordinates. To her, however, death only signifies weakness, and she believes those bums deserve their fate. Now she needs a new squad, stronger individuals who can serve as her elite agents. Among the new recruits is Wave, a country hillbilly boy who has just arrived in the capital carrying a bag filled with smelly fish. His awkward, out-of-place behavior immediately draws whispers from those around him, but he ignores them and walks straight into the palace where the candidates have gathered. Inside, Wave quickly realizes that none of them are normal. There's Bull, the shy, masked giant, Kurome, Expressionless as ever, the unhinged Seiryu, accompanied by her demon hound Koro and her questionable ally, Dr. Stylish. And finally, Run, the handsome and composed man. Their introduction is anything but gentle as S-Death greets them by suddenly launching a kick, testing their reflexes. Wave takes the hit instantly, while Run dodges with ease. Seiryu, on the other hand, attempts a sneak attack from behind, only to be countered effortlessly. Kurome, however, manages to land a blow that cracks S-Death's mask. Soon after their initiation is complete, they are all forced to dress like men in black. When asked what the team's name will be, S-Death declares that they will be called the Jaegers. Their mission is simple: eliminate all defectors who threaten the Empire's stability, and most importantly, wipe out the Night Raid. After the initiation, the group assembles at their base, where they begin getting to know each other. S-Death even shares her innermost life goal, which is to find love and get bang bros recklessly.
You serious?
She then brings up the issue of a spare relic currently at their disposal. This relic is Sheele's scissors, which she learns is being held at headquarters. So far, no one has been able to wield them, as no compatible user has been found. This worries S-Death because if no suitable wielder appears soon, Prime Minister Honest could end up claiming the relic for himself, something she clearly has no intention of allowing. Elsewhere, Tatsumi follows Lubbock into the secret hideout of the Night Raid in the capital, where Leone is already waiting. With Mine now wanted, only the three of them can still move freely. Even so, their situation is grim, as the Jaegers have already become the talk of the capital. Tatsumi still can't understand why S-Death is so feared, so Lubbock explains that years ago, when a rebellious clan defied the Empire, both Najenda and S-Death were dispatched as generals to crush it. S-Death reveled in the bloodshed. She loved having people's lives under her mercy. She deliberately spared a few survivors, letting them spread tales of terror so rebellions would continue, giving her endless excuses to indulge in war. That was when Najenda witnessed the depth of S-Death's corruption and chose to part ways with her. Leona, who once felt S-Death's aura firsthand, describes it as monstrous, something more beast than human. Changing the subject, Lubbock then shows Tatsumi an advertisement for a martial arts tournament where the winner receives a cash reward. He suggests that Tatsumi enter the tournament, win the prize money, and send it back to his hometown, an idea that immediately makes sense to Tatsumi. Elsewhere in the palace, Emperor Kaute asks Honest what kind of man S-Death is looking for as a partner. Honest claims no one could possibly meet her standards, but Kaute reveals that she actually has a list. She wants someone younger, from outside the capital, untapped potential, bravery, and above all, an innocent-looking face. Weeks later, when the martial arts tournament finally begins, S-Death secretly attends, scouting for someone worthy of wielding Sheele's weapon. One fighter after another steps into the arena, but none of them catch her interest until Tatsumi appears. When Tatsumi faces off against a massive minotaur, he defeats the beast without even relying on Incursio, proving just how much stronger he has become. Tatsumi's victory alone is impressive, but it's the confident smile he flashes at the cheering crowd that seals it. That smile instantly rizzes up hot mommy SD.
Hi.
Okay.
And without hesitation, she descends from the podium to meet Tatsumi face to face. However, instead of receiving the cash reward, Tatsumi gets a chain collar to the neck, as S-Death declares that from this moment on, he belongs to her as both her pet and her lover. On his first night living as S-Death's pet, Tatsumi is dragged along to witness the Jaegers in action. S-Death keeps a tight grip on his hand, clinging to him like an overly obsessed lover, while her unit carries out their operation below. Almost immediately, Tatsumi sees Seiryu and gets angry, but Bulat's warning echoes in his mind, reminding him that rage alone won't keep him alive. The thought of running crosses his mind, but with S-Death glued to his side, escape isn't even an option. What he sees instead leaves him shaken. Seiryu has become a walking machine of destruction, Koro's abilities, a transformation designed by Dr. Stylish. Kurome fights with the same speed as Akame, balanced by Wave's counterattacks. Outside, Bowles unleashes flames with his ancient weapon, while Run soars above with angelic wings that turn feathers into blade. Together, they crush their enemies with ease, and Tatsumi realizes just how terrifyingly strong the Jaegers truly are. S-Death, meanwhile, is genuinely smitten. Tatsumi thinks he might use this to change her, but it isn't so simple. Later, in her quarters, fresh from a shower and looking like a snack, she tries to seduce him. Tatsumi refuses, declaring he can never love someone who supports the corrupt government that has ruined his life. So instead of sympathy, gets a slap. S-Death's affection doesn't change her loyalty to the Empire, and she demands that Tatsumi follow her path. Even after her kiss, Tatsumi stands firm. Eventually, S-Death ends the argument and goes to sleep, warning him not to try anything foolish, or it will cost his life. That night, Tatsumi lies uneasily in her arms, unable to relax for even a moment. In the morning, Tatsumi speaks with Kurome and Wave. When Tatsumi mentions that Kurome looks like Akame, Kurome admits the truth that Akame is her sister. Since Akame has turned against the Empire, Kurome now sees her as an enemy she must hunt. Their conversation is interrupted when Esdeath enters, announcing a new mission in the fake mountain. During the mission, Tatsumi is paired with Wave. To his surprise, they aren't so different after all. Tatsumi prepares to slip away when tree-like monsters suddenly attack. The two fight side by side, but once the battle ends, Tatsumi uses Incursio to flee into the forest. Wave, however, isn't far behind. Wielding the Grand Chariot, an imitation of Incursio, he confronts Tatsumi, believing Night Raid owns Incursio. Wave attacks with full force, while Tatsumi holds back, not wanting to fight. Fueled by hatred for Night Raid, Wave presses harder, finally kicking Tatsumi into the river. Using Incursio's invisibility, Tatsumi narrowly escapes. Another danger looms again from a monster, but luck is still on his side because Akame appears, cutting it down and saving him. At last, Tatsumi is back among his comrade. Though the reunion is touching, Lubbock quickly whisks him away before the Jaegers can track them. Back with the Jaegers, Wave is punished harshly by Esdeath for losing her pet. Meanwhile, at Night Raid's hideout, Tatsumi shares everything he has learned from the Jaegers' terrifying weapons to Kurome's presence. Akame says that her sister calls her a traitor because Kurome still defends the government. And now she swears that as long as Esdeath lives, she will end her. But danger is already closing in. But unbeknownst to from the shadows, Dr. Stylish and his mutant troops have discovered the Night Raid's base camp.
Good job!
After Tatsumi's welcome celebration, the camp is still heavy with drink when Leone, the first to rise, goes to wash up. At the nearby spring, she is suddenly ambushed by one of Dr. Stylish's mutants. At the same time, more mutant soldiers slip into the camp, launching a coordinated attack while everyone is still nursing hangovers. Lubbock is the first to respond. He catches one mutant with his strings, but raw power alone fails to finish the job. Forced to focus completely, he coats his body in strings for protection and reshapes his bindings into a sharp spear-like attack, finally piercing his opponent. But the fight does not end there as more mutants close in, steadily boxing him in. Just as Lubbock is about to be overwhelmed, Akame steps in, cutting down the attackers with a single decisive strike. Then a far more dangerous enemy enters the field. Toby, one of Dr. Stylish's creations, appears with a body remodeled into a living arsenal of blades and firearms. He sets his sights on Akame, while two enormous mutants emerge to keep Lubbock pinned down. Outside the camp, Tatsumi is locked in combat with a large Hulk wielding Extus, the Tegu that once belonged to Sheele. Fury surges through him, and he throws everything he has into the fight. Even so, Extase proves terrifyingly powerful, matching Incursio blow for blow until Tatsumi's weapon is shattered outright. From a distance, Dr. Stylish watches without concern, unmoved by how many of his creations are destroyed along the way. But just before Tatsumi can be finished off, Mind steps in. The moment she recognizes Extase, she snaps as she refuses to allow Sheila's weapon and her memory to be desecrated any further. Unleashing her Tegu, Mind reduces the wielder to ash in a single, merciless blast. At last, Extase is reclaimed by Night Raid, and as Mind takes it back in silence, she mourns Sheele's death all over again. Then, from the sky, Najenda arrives atop a flying manta beast, accompanied by two new Imperial weapons wielders. Thanks to a warning from an oracle within the Revolutionary Army, they had foreseen the attack and returned just in time to turn the tide. Meanwhile, Akame takes on Toby, but his artificial body renders her curse useless. Left with no other option, she starts dismantling him piece by Lego parts, tearing him limb by limbs. Lubbock's spear finally locks him in place, giving Akame the opening she needs to cleanly sever his head. At the rear, Mind catches sight of Najenda's flying beast and relaxes, knowing the airspace is secure. But the real danger is still on the ground. The assassin who ambushed Leone earlier resurfaces and goes straight for Mind. Before he can strike, Leone storms back in, blazing with rage. She crushes his throat, bites the hidden blade from his boot before it can cut her, then slams him into the earth with lethal force, ending him on the spot. As everyone regroups, Dr. Stylish makes his final move, releasing another swarm of mutants while flooding the area with a paralyzing toxin. One by one, the team is immobilized, all except Tatsumi. who remains protected by Nkurjo. Seeing no other option, Najenda gives the order for their newest member, Susanoo, to step in. The towering horned warrior charges forward, wielding a massive fan lined with 5 blades. Without slowing down, he tears through the remaining mutants, cutting them apart in a relentless advance. Stylish counters by detonating his minions. But Susanoo survives, revealing his secret. He is the ancient weapon itself, the living biological weapon, capable of regenerating. From above, Najenda spots Stylish on the cliff and commands Susanoo to attack him. Cornered, Stylish fuses with his own creation, mutating into a grotesque giant by devouring his subordinates. But it is not enough for him. He targets Susanoo, but Tatsumi and Akame decide to jump in. Mine also helps by shooting Stylish from above with Najenda, making him fall to the ground, giving Tatsumi and Akame the opportunity to strike while Susanoo holds it from behind. Tatsumi launches forward, carrying Akame on his back. With a final leap, Akame vaults off Tatsumi and slashes Stylish's chest before he can evolve further. By sunrise, the battle is over, and Dr. Stylish lies dead. After the attack, Najenda leads Night Raid to relocate, moving them into a new hideout deep within Mark Valley, a region infested with dangerous monsters where no ordinary human would dare to enter. The revolutionaries promise to provide them with an official base later, but for now, the valley will serve as their shelter, and it also marks the moment they welcome new recruits. First comes Chelsea, bubbly, sharp-tongued, and immediately disliked by mine. Yet she manages to win Akame over with something as simple as a piece of candy. Though her appearance seems ordinary, Najenda claims her power rivals Akame's. Second is Susanoo, Najenda's personal ancient weapon, a human-like biological weapon originally built to protect King. He can fight, cook, clean, build, clap her good throaty night, and even something as simple as fixing Tatsumi's loose shirt. Has his obsessive tendencies, making him part warrior, part overpowered maid. Though both newcomers are promising, their fit within the group seems uncertain. Mine clashes with Chelsea's bluntness, while Lubbock resents Susanoo for instantly stealing the hot Chad roll in camp. Meanwhile, back at the capital, Run and Bowles investigate Dr. Stylish's absence. His lab remains untouched, his belongings still in place. Esdeath, however, already knows the truth that he is dead. Once again, Seryu loses someone important. First her father, then her mentor, now her doctor. Though she puts on a brave face when Esdeath asks if she's fine, the girl breaks down in tears. In that moment, Seryu devotes herself entirely to Esdeath and all of her purpose in life. At the new base, Najenda briefs her squad. The Empire is reinforcing its military, and Night Raid can expect no further reinforcements. And these 2 recruits will be their last. All they can do now is survive, finish their missions, and hold out until the day of revolution. Group bonding followed. Susanoo wins everyone over easily, as his cooking is excellent, and he proves invaluable in training. Chelsea, on the other hand, tests boundaries. She transforms into a cat, and then tricks Mine into stealing her cake, revealing her ancient weapon is Gaia Foundation. With it, she can transform her appearance through makeup, perfectly suited for infiltration and disguise. During training, Tatsumi spars with Leone in a monster lair. To her surprise, Tatsumi has already learned to summon Nkurzio's spear, just as his bulat once had. Proud but unwilling to be outdone, Leone relies on her instincts, hunts down the pack's leader, and ends it with a beast's ferocity. It has been a month, and Najenda asks Chelsea how she feels about the team. Chelsea smiles, admitting they are stronger than her former group, but she also warns them that they way too naive, and they can all die at any moment. She recalls Sheele and Bulat's deaths as proof and urges them to abandon that weakness if they truly wish to survive. Later that night, Mine, still angry about Chelsea's words, invite Tatsumi and Lubbock to help her teach Chelsea some respect. Lubbock devises a prank. Tatsumi will use Nkurzio's invisibility to sneak up on her while she bathes and then place a bucket overhead. But when Tatsumi tries later that night, Chelsea turns the table. She transforms into Susanoo, calling out Tatsumi even while he is invisible. Embarrassed, Tatsumi apologizes, realizing his mistake. Touched by his apology, Chelsea then decides to share her life story with Tatsumi. She reveals that after one mission, she returns to find her entire squad massacred. That loss drives her harshness, and she simply can't bear to see another comrade die. Tatsumi finally understands her and smiles, relieved that Chelsea truly cares about the group. Far away, Esdeath patrols the streets as usual, though her thoughts never stray far from Tatsumi. Run, walking behind her, mentions that he has found people resembling him and offers to investigate. But Esdeath refuses, as no look-alike can fool her, not even if she wishes it. But secretly, Run's real mission is to monitor Esdeath's every move. Still, Esdeath's heart whispers that fate will bring her and Tatsumi together again, whether in reunion or in battle. Elsewhere, within a quarry, miners scream as new breeds of death monsters are unleashed upon them. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more content like this. As always, thanks for watching.